Everybody knows Leonardo da Vinci as the epitome of the Renaissance man. He was an engineer, he was an architect, he was a scientist with an interest in everything from the complex flow of water to optics. Of course, Leonardo was also a painter and a notorious perfectionist. And it wasn't just that he found it hard to complete pictures. During the course of his career, which lasted around half a century, he probably began work on no more than 20 paintings. And only 15 have survived that art historians generally agree are entirely his. Which is barely more than a couple of handfuls, really. So the discovery of a new painting by Leonardo is a major event, which is why I'm very keen to head inside and take a look for myself. I've just stepped inside from the city street, this sort of maelstrom of activity, human hustle and bustle. And here, suddenly you're stopped in your tracks and it sucks you towards it. It has this quiet aura. And it's really quite humbling and moving to be confronted by this, so face to face. We're brought right up close, next to divinity itself. He's Christ, he's the figure of Christ in the guise of Salvator Mundi, the saviour of the world. Discovering a new painting by Leonardo is a bit like finding a new planet. When you first encounter the picture, it has all of the hallmarks of a work by Leonardo. It has that shadowy, mysterious quality, that use of sfumato, the smoky, evanescent blurring of boundaries and contours, which create that very distinctive effect if you look around here. This real interest and obsession in hair, in the intricacy of these cascading, high-lit ringlets of hair. This was a man who was obsessed with optics and the way light worked. And of course, you're seeing light passing through the orb, this transparent rock crystal orb that Christ is holding in his left hand. And everywhere in Leonardo's work, you find figures who are pointing as though they're pointing to a secret of the painting which can never quite be imparted and unravelled. And here you don't have a pointing hand, but you have that right hand raised in blessing. And it seems to be gesturing upwards, which is the general tone of this thing. It's about heavenly mysteries. This was painted probably around about the turn of the 16th century, 1499, 1500, round about then. And eventually, in the 17th century, it ended up in the royal collection of King Charles I of England. The royal collection was sold off. This picture, which was sold and then returned, languishes in obscurity until the beginning of the 20th century, when no one thought that it would possibly be by Leonardo. People considered this, at that time it was completely overpainted. They thought it was by a follower of Leonardo, so twice removed. Have a look at this right hand of blessing here. The quality of the hand is one of the clues, was originally for some art historians and scholars, that this could be by Leonardo. And when it was subjected to analysis, they saw what's known as a pentiment, which means you can see the workings of the artist. Originally, the thumb was in a different position, and then Leonardo must have changed his mind, and he switches that thumb to its final position. If you were making a copy of a picture, there's no way you'd do that. It wouldn't make any sense. They also looked and saw along that upper line of the upper lip evidence that this image was created by transferring a drawing onto the panel, and that's done by pricking tiny holes in the contours of the drawing, shaking dust so that gently it goes through the cartoon, leaving minute traces of that drawing in the dust on the surface of the panel. And some of those were still to be found. Now again, if you were copying a painting, it's highly unlikely that you would go about doing that. A group of Leonardo experts and scholars, working closely with professional conservatives, built a case that this painting, despite the obvious skepticism that it couldn't possibly be by Leonardo, was in fact a genuine autograph original work. I'm not remotely religious. But I find looking at this genuinely quite a moving thing, because this is offering a vision of peace, which is a complete antidote to day-to-day life. It's a really extraordinary, memorable picture. And it feels as though it could suddenly slip off back into the shadows at any moment.